Procurement Minister, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming in today, sir.
Thanks for having me.
The problem here seems enormous. Canada Post is losing $10 million a day. Are you confident this plan can get them to at least a break-even point?
Well, not in and of itself, but I think it's the foundation to having Canada Post reach a break-even point at some point in the future. And I think that's the goal here. You know, we've had to inject $1 billion just to keep the lights on at Canada Post because it's recorded a $1.3 billion deficit in 2024. Now it's on path to a $1.5 billion deficit. Last quarter, so Q2, Canada Post had a loss of $407 million. It currently, as you've mentioned, loses $10 million a day. And I think that the signal here for me and for us as a government is that Canadians can be footing the bill forever, and it's going to be an ever-increasing bill unless we start taking actions, which is what we're doing with the proposed changes to Canada Post that I've announced today.
Okay, so you're giving them 45 days to come up with a plan on how to implement the directions you gave them today.
We can separate it in two parts. So the first thing we did is back in May, William Kaplan of the Industrial and Trade Commission gave us a report with different recommendations, some of which the government can implement. We're implementing these recommendations,
lifting
all
the
of them.
moratoriums and giving them more flexible delivery
Exactly.
times.
So community mailboxes, for instance, it's not going to happen like, I'm not asking them for a plan in 45 days. It's going to be rolled out over years. We're talking about 4 million addresses that will be converted to community mailboxes. And just to give viewers a sense of the reason why we're doing this, it costs significantly more to deliver mail to an individual address than it does to a community mailbox. 77% of Canadians already receive mail through rural or community mailboxes or in apartment buildings. So lifting that moratorium, allowing Canada Post to make these changes over years, will save the corporation about $400 million.
Right, but in the 45 days you've given them to have a look at their operations, they'll lose about $450 million using your $10 million a day figure. I mean, what is it you want to see from Canada Post at the end of that process to supplement the changes you announced today?
Well, I want them to look at their corporate structure, their management structure, see where they can find efficiencies and reduce costs. And this is an exercise that we're going through as a government. I expect Canada Post to do the same, and to it, cognizant of the dire financial situation it's in, that's why I've asked him to come back with a plan to do just that on top of the changes that we're announcing, lifting the moratorium, changing the service standard. Okay,
so the government departments have been told to find 15%. For reallocation or savings. Is that what you've asked Canada Post to do, or is it bigger given the size of the problem?
I'm asking them to go as far as they can and respond to its financial reality. That's essentially it.
Yeah. In my conversations with officials from Canada Post and with the union throughout the various labor issues over the past year, there are intractable challenges that Canada Post management sees in their collective agreement structure that the union is not willing to give away at the bargaining table. Are you prepared to do legislative changes to the collective agreement if that's what it takes for Canada Post to make the structural changes it needs to do?
I'd rather not speculate on labor relations going forward between the union and management. I've spoken with both, and I know that the union cares about the financial future of Canada Post. What I'm hoping, and I might be optimistic, but I'm hoping that as we make this announcement that we intend on transforming Canada Post, make it financially viable in the future, that it can reset the relationship and that parties will get back to bargaining in light of what we've announced and with a clear conscience of the financial reality of Canada Post.
Right. Well, the union, I think, sent its last offer or counter-offer to management sometime in August. I mean, look, William Kaplan is not brought in if things are going good between management and a union, right? Like he is, yes, he is the break glass in case of emergency, a mediator, arbitrator here. There would need to be a dramatic change in that relationship, in the labor relations climate, for it to evolve organically, don't you think? I mean, how confident are you really that they can do this on their own?
I think today, as far as I'm concerned, I think both parties have an opportunity, both management and the union, to face the moment and respond to the existential crisis that Canada Post is in. We can't continue as Canada Post as a corporation, but the union and management and their relationship as it's done in decades past, because the reality has changed, and Canada Post has accumulated losses of close to $5 billion in the last 7 years. That's enormous. So I think both parties can use this opportunity, use this moment to reset the relationship. And how confident am I? I mean, I'm hopeful, and I know that they both care about the future of Canada Post, and it would be in the best interest of the corporation, of this institution that Canadians care about, and of Canadians that they find a common ground.
But I mean, what if they can't? What is the government prepared to do there? I know you say you don't want to prejudge labor relations, but there is a history here. There is a track record here that is not a promising one. Yeah. And it may very well require some sort of action from government.
Well, we're not there. And what I've announced today is when you look at the Kaplan report, it's true that there are items that he's mentioning and I think shouldn't be off the table about flexibility for part-time workers and so on and so forth. However, there are some things that the government can do right away, and this is what we're doing right now to start these changes and get the corporation back on a suitable or stable financial footing.
So 10 years ago, the Liberals ran against ending home delivery. And I know the financial situation of Canada Post was different at that time than it is now. But the projections on letter delivery and stuff we are where I think the belief was at that point in time it would go. And this is why the decision was made to phase it out, and it was run against, and it was stopped. I mean, was it a mistake? I mean, this seems to have cost Canada Post time and arguably a lot of money.
Yeah, well, as you've mentioned, the financial situation was different. I think the reality of Canadians' use of mail services of Canada Post was different also. The pandemic accelerated the decline in letter mail drastically. So, I think hindsight, probably yes, for the reasons you've outlined. But I think now is now more than ever is the right time to bring these changes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I appreciate hindsight. I know it's a lot worse now than I think we expected, but the decline of letter delivery and the use of direct mail, right. I mean, that was the reason for it 10 years ago. I mean, Canada Post knew, the government of Canada knew in 2015 that this was inevitable.
And I have to say, I'm proud to be in a new government that's willing to make the hard decisions. And I think that's what Canadians expect, that we show political courage and that we move forth with measures that will, be responsible with taxpayers' money, but also allow us to invest in projects that Canadians care about, in the social services that we need, social programs that we need.
So the changes you announced today to the mandate at Canada Post, you think that could save them $400 million when it's...
all in all, about $500 million.
Right.
The three changes.
But over time. That's going to take a bit of time for those savings to be realized. And obviously the labor relations dynamic is its own thing. You had to give them $1 billion to keep functioning at the beginning of this year. You suggested that there could be points where Canada Post has to come back for more cash.
Right.
I mean, how frequently? To what limit? How far are you willing to go to keep underwriting Canada Post in this current time?
I'll have to wait for them to come back with a plan. There are other things that I've announced today, for instance, reviewing the way we increase the price of stamps as other countries do, as Kaplan recommended. As it's one of the things both the union and management agree on is that we should have a process that's more modern and that's shortened. So it's premature for me to say, but the one thing I can say is that what we're doing is we're making it clear that Canadian taxpayers and Canadians won't repeatedly bail out Canada Post to an ever-growing tune.
How confident are you it survives this whole process, this whole transformation, that just the way mail has gone and the way companies are moving into the parcel delivery business, at scale and at pace, does Canada Post survive?
I think it has to survive because it provides an essential lifeline to hundreds, if not thousands, of communities across the country, northern, remote, Indigenous communities. It's got a vast network that I think Canadians rely on, depend on, to be connected to one another and to the world. So I think it's we have an obligation to make it work in many ways.
Joël Lightbound, Minister of Government Transformation, Public Works and Procurement. Thanks for coming in today. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Well, for its part, Canada Post is welcoming the federal government's announcement today. The CEO says today's announcement will allow us to make the changes needed to restore Canada's postal service for all Canadians by evolving to better meet their needs. Well, the union is here to react to all of that. Jim Gallant is a negotiator with Cup W, and he joins me live in the studio. Jim Gallant, it's good to see you, sir. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us on.
You heard what the minister had to say, saying that Canadians won't perpetually bail out Canada Post to an unlimited amount. What message do you take from those comments and what he outlined today?
Well, that hasn't been what's gone on in the past, and there's been a couple of years that have been bad, but it's been bad for the country, period. The pandemic has made it so it's trouble for a lot of corporations and companies, and we end up with what the minister has put here today is him carrying Canada Post water. He says, I'm relying on Bill Kaplan's report, but Bill Kaplan relied on Canada Post Management's report. So it ends up, it's just a set of dominoes. It's the same story being told by different people.
But it's $10 million a day. Is that not the case? I mean, they had to give them a $1 billion credit line at the beginning of this year to keep things going, and $400 million loss in Q2 of 2025. That's not pandemic years. That's right now.
I understand that. We went on strike in November and December last year. They ordered us back to work and then ordered an inquiry. All those things have kept customers away. And so we have a bad year, and for sure it is a bad year. We have a bad year, but you can't base what's there on this year. And I'll tell you that they finally put the stamp up, what he's talking about at the end. They put the stamp up this year to a reasonable rate.
Right.
And they've increased, their revenue increase in the first 2 quarters is $378 million, something like that.
Right, but there's still a loss, right? And north of $400 million. And you look at the cumulative losses, and it goes back even further. I mean, there is no organization can operate like that in perpetuity, right? So in your view, what needs to be changed if it's not these recommendations?
But exactly that. It's not in perpetuity. You're looking at 1 year. They're saying it's $10 million a day now. Because there's a strike action in, because we're not delivering flyers, because the government has interfered, all those things have made it so there's less revenue coming in. That it's as simple as that. There's less parcels. The government's still using other carriers that are American carriers, multinationals, instead of using the post office. They're loading on to make sure that we're not going to come out of that while there's a problem.
Right. So I want to read you something, and I'm sure you've read this. This is William Kaplan's report, which they adopted today. He writes that Cup W has an immediate choice: continue to adhere to objectively debunked claims about Canada Post's financial state and the challenges facing letter mail and parcel delivery, or acknowledge that Canada Post's financial situation requires an immediate pivot to its overall bargaining approach. I mean, there's a pretty clear message there from the third party brought in that Canada Post has a real problem, and that's going to require the union to be flexible. What's your response to that?
My response is that Mr. Kaplan had a commission that lasted 5 days. He canceled the last day. He had that commission 4 days, and he was done by noon on all but one of those days. Right. 16 hours. Half of that was ours, so we got to speak for 8 hours. He never called one witness where there was nobody given an oath to tell the truth. People didn't. There were people that told the commission lies, to be fair. And he comes out with a report that's exactly what Canada Post talks about. It doesn't talk about what the Indigenous communities in Canada talked about, First Nations, municipalities, people talking about what they needed in a post office. He forgot all of it or didn't bother with it.
So your argument is that the financial situation is a temporal thing, and that if you can get a new collective agreement, 2026 is a profit year, 2027 is a profit year, because the assessments by the government, by Canada Post, by Mr. Kaplan, and by the trends in letter sending and package delivery don't suggest that things will get better without reform.
They talk about market share that they've lost. That market share is Amazon. That's what they've lost. The CEO, Doug Ettinger, told them that they could not hold the volumes that Amazon was offering. He sent them away. That's the market share that they've lost. There is now some market share that they've lost on other customers because of the prolonged strike and the prolonged pause by the Minister of Labour. Those things all impact. I'm saying the only way to stability is to get a collective agreement signed, get back to work, let customers come back and see what the profit is. Because with the stamp going up, with postage going up, we see that there's new revenue to the tune of about $1 billion a year.
Okay, we've got some pictures here, and Jim, you can look over there and see it on the monitor. These are picket lines that have gone up in Atlantic Canada. I think this may be Moncton, am I understanding? Yeah, this is in Moncton.
Yep.
This came in after I did my interview with the minister. That's why I didn't ask him about it. It was not a deliberate exclusion. What's happening here? I know you're still technically in a legal strike position.
Correct.
But you were in negotiations. You did send a counter proposal last month.
That's right.
Was there notice given to this job action, or should we expect to see Cup W off the job right across the country?
I think that should be your expectation, but what I see on those pictures is members of the union reacting to a minister of procurement that has made a drastic mistake. And we expect Canadians will get behind us. When we've been out on our picket lines, people are saying that we're getting the bad end of the stick, and that the government and Canada Post should do something. That's what we need. We need the public behind us, and we need the government to figure this out.
But are you going back on strike? I mean, is this? It's not a wildcat because you are in a legal strike position.
People are on picket lines as we speak.
Right, but is people, not everybody. This is what I'm wondering. Are you shutting down the mail service?
I believe that's happening. I believe that will happen within the next 24 hours.
So organically, or with the direction from you and the union?
The unions, it will be the union's direction.
Okay, and so, but will there be
those things take time. We only saw the minister today. Not only the union reacts, the members react. So these things happen, like you say, organically. The people in Moncton that you saw on the TV, I'd say they're pretty organically. It started in Atlantic Canada.
Okay, look, and I know this is happening in real time, but do you know if it is just Moncton or multiple locations, multiple provinces at this point? What's your understanding of how widespread this is?
At this point, I'm sure of the 4 Atlantic provinces. I'm from there. I have people texting me all the time. Those 4 provinces are out, and people are moving to join them. I've seen other places. Okay, so obviously I did see, I was sent a statement by the Liberal leader and Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, John Hogan, who's in the middle of an election campaign, and he's calling for the federal government to pause these reforms until they have consultations with provinces, because clearly a heavily rural province like my home province, your home province in Nova Scotia as well, the rural post office matter, and the moratorium has been lifted on this. So you know that, is it every postal worker in Atlantic Canada right now, every postal station has a picket line, or is this too fluid to know for sure, Jim Goulet? It's fluid, but I will tell you that not every post office in Atlantic Canada is one of ours that our members are in.
Every unionized post office.
Well, no, there's other unions that take care of smaller places.
Okay.
So, but we take care of I think it's 9 locals in Newfoundland. So
they're all off.
The bigger ones, they're all out.
They're all out. Okay. So you anticipate by tomorrow everywhere Cup W will be back on the picket line?
Yeah.
Okay. So that doesn't bode well.
We don't want to be there.
No, I'm not suggesting you do, but that does not bode well for essentially the climate now, where the government has given Canada Post management 45 days to come up with a broader restructuring plan. That likely means cuts to the management workforce. It almost certainly means cuts to your workforce, because that's what restructuring means. But if you're back on the picket line, I mean, where does this go?
Well, I think the government, the Premier is asking him to stop. We're asking him to stop too. We don't want him to go back and rethink it and do it after we don't have a strike mandate. We want to deal with this. We want to see what Canada Post is going to be in the future. And it's not Canada Post's decision. It's not Doug Ettinger that gets to decide if you get your parcel at your house. It is the government ultimately, and we think the public has a say in that. And we want to be delivering to people's homes, just like our what we call our competition. We want those parcels going, because otherwise, all that happens is it deteriorates the post office and the writing's on the wall at that point. So we need something that's sustainable, not a sunset industry, and it's there. And there's money to be made. Okay, I've got to let you go, but I just want to make sure, because people are going to hear what you said, and we're going to write stories, there's going to be headlines out of this. I want to make sure we're not freelancing, or you're not freelancing, or we're not guessing based on what we've seen in Atlantic Canada. It is your expectation that Cup W national leadership will call for everybody to go on the picket lines within the next 24 hours, and the strike is back on. I know that. Okay. You're correct in what you just said. Okay, that's coming tonight, do you think, or tomorrow? It will be it's happening in real time, but it will be soon.
Okay, Jim Gallant with Cup W. I have a feeling we'll be speaking again. Thanks so much, sir.
Thank you.